They're the one actually did it on the Reg A Plus, the big one. So we're going to have to get to talk to Ron Miller.
Thanks. Well, I am Ron Miller. I'm the CEO of Start Engine, and since Doug did out me as a aspiring securities attorney, the reason why, I thought I'd share with you the reason why, and that is because, I've always, I'm just a lowly CEO of a startup company, right? So what I really want to do is become a securities lawyer so that I can refer to $1 million Reg A Plus as pocket change. I don't know if any of you guys caught that. Doug just left the room, but I promised him the payback, so let me turn it back over to Darren to do a quick intro, and we'll roll from there.
All right. Good morning. I'm Darren Marble. I'm the CEO of CrowdFundX. I want to thank CrowdFundB and OTC Markets for having me. It is a true honor to be here. CrowdFundX is a financial marketing firm. We've marketed more than 100 crowdfunding campaigns in the last 3 years. Started with Kickstarter, Indiegogo, evolved into Reg A Plus. We've been very fortunate to be involved in some notable deals, both past and present. I'm not a securities attorney, for the record, but looking forward to this presentation. So, marketing, from our perspective, Reg A Plus is really, at the end of the day, an exercise in two things: storytelling and digital marketing. And for whatever reason, this goes over the head of 90% of issuers that we talk to. They don't understand that this is a marketing exercise, this is a brand building exercise, and a very small percentage of people, to Kim's point, end up investing. Just as a quick baseline statistic, in the Elio Motors Reg A campaign, we drove about 650,000 page views to their campaign page on Start Engine, which we'll show you in a sec. 6,500 people ultimately invested. That's a 1% conversion, which, by the way, is a phenomenal conversion.
How long the period?
7 months. In that deal, there was test the waters. 5 months test the waters, 2 months live offer. But I agree with Doug. We're not a big believer at this point in test the waters. We think issuers should give their customers, fans, new constituents the ability to invest immediately. So it's really a marketing exercise supported by proper counsel, accounting firms, broker-dealers, bankers, platforms. So building your crowd, we'll look at the Elio Motors video. We'll talk about design, production, distribution of the story. A couple secrets to success, hybrid syndication, and Q&A. So I want to talk for a couple minutes about marketing, digital marketing. You either have a crowd going into your Reg CF or Reg A Plus deal, or you don't, okay? And I'll talk about a profile of company that is essentially a great fit for Reg A Plus. Elio Motors was a classic, perfect bullseye fit. They had a crowd, they had 40,000 pre-orders for the vehicle, they had another 40,000 newsletter subscribers, 250,000 Facebook fans. People were literally emotionally invested in this company before they came to the table, before Ron, myself were engaged. My understanding is that of the 17 million raised, about 65% came from their pre-order list. So if you are a company that has customers who could be business customers, you could be B2B, B2C, you have an inherent advantage. If you don't have a crowd, it simply means you have a harder road ahead of you, but doesn't rule you out from being a fit for Reg A or Reg CF. So what we do oftentimes with those issuers, biotech, life sciences, you're not a consumer products company, you're a B2B company, you don't have a Facebook page, you have to build a crowd in advance of your offer or you will fail. So one of the ways we do that is by setting up email landing pages that look like this. We drive people to those pages by buying media from Facebook or LinkedIn. We target people who we think are likely to invest in your deal, and we have them sign up their name, phone number, and email to receive future communications from you, the issuer. We help the issuer craft the emails that then go out, and these are just different examples, and we optimize these. We test dozens of versions of art and copy to find the message that's going to inspire and really convert. But the goal is simple. You need to build a crowd before you go into your live offer, and we need to nurture this crowd. We need to communicate with them for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, not just about hammering the head with your proposition. We need to educate these people. 99.999% of Americans do not know they can invest in your company. This is not mainstream knowledge. Look at this group. The entire industry is in this room right now. This is a fact. OTC Markets has done a whiz-bang job. They're all here. This is a very small industry. Nobody knows they can invest. So we have to educate people, let them know they have the ability to invest. Maybe 2 communications might be specific to the industry, Reg A+, how to make money in commercial real estate. The 1 out of 3 communications might be specific to your company. So what we do is build that audience. We're trying to get 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 people in your database, nurture them, educate them, inform them, condition them legally, condition them to invest when you're qualified by the SEC. Before I go any further, Ron, you want to have a comment?
Yeah, just a couple of things there. One is there was a gentleman that asked earlier about whether Start Engine or other platforms have a community already there. I would say the biggest misconception that issuers have, and remember every day I talk to, I would say on average personally 5 a week, and then I've got 3 business development execs that are probably talking about 10 a week each. So I'm dealing with 40 to 50 prospective issuers. And generally speaking, I know that when I have to answer that question for the 3rd time from the same person, so tell me about how big Start Engine's community is, I know we have a mismatch. There's a misunderstanding about what this is and an unwillingness to listen. So for example, the contrast I try to point out is that on Kickstarter, they've got a community of about 10 million registered users on Kickstarter. But it is well known that if you take a campaign and you put it on Kickstarter, it will fail, unless you do the things that Darren's talking about. So this is what's absolutely critical. And I've heard some people say, and I don't, we're trying to move away from the word crowdfunding to describe what we prefer to call online public offerings. But if you think about the word crowdfunding, the reason that crowd comes before funding is because you need a crowd before you fund. And that's basically what Darren's trying to say. And that is, I would think, of all of the misunderstandings and of the failures, when you look at Reg A+ and you look at the attempts and successes, the gap between those two is that misunderstanding. And I think what's going on here is Darren pointed out that what's really going on is 2 things at once. You're branding your company, you're building your audience, you're building your customer base, and you are testing your market proposition. By their nature, entrepreneurs tend to be tinkerers, and they prefer to tinker with their product rather than deal with the marketing stuff, right? And what Darren's talking about is the marketing stuff. And so what they do is they turn away from the market, go back to focusing on the product because they're convinced, and they just show the product to the market. All we gotta do is put it out there and they will come, right? Build it and they will come. We've all heard that one. And that's what the industry as a whole, I'm not trying to blame anybody for that. Now, one of the differences in the EO Motors campaign, right? And by the way, I just thought I'd point out that Test the Waters generate about 47 million in Test the Water commitments, 11,500 people indicated interest in investing in that company, and it converted to about 6,300 and just under 17 million in cash. So you can see, major gap there, right? But the difference in Paul Elio was a founder who understood the importance of the go-to-market and marketing strategy. So what did he do about that? One is that he hired Darren. That's the first thing that he did. He researched, found the best guys that he could, and you're gonna see the quality of this campaign. I'm gonna claim that this video that you're about to see is gonna become iconic in the space. And the reason I say that is it's just so well done. And this is, you'll see Paul speaking the words, but trust me, when Paul came in, those weren't the words he was intending on speaking. He wants to talk about his company, and he wants to talk about his great car. Tell you about the 84 miles to the gallon and all that stuff. And the reality is, it's not about the car, and it's not about the company. And when you watch this, now that I've told you that, now when you'll see the video in a few minutes, you're gonna see how Darren and his team did what they did to create this result. So, I guess the end of it is that this, what Darren's talking about, I think is probably one of the most critical factors of success. Of course you need to get your compliance right. Yep, you gotta have good lawyers that do know what they're doing, that are experienced. If you don't do that, you can do all the stuff Darren's talking about. Then there's this thing called disgorgement, which means if you screw this up, they're taking all the money back. So you got it. That's a must do or don't play. But once you get to past that with a great lawyer and your filings right, after that, this is where the play happens. So,
right on.
Tune her up.
So I co-authored an article with another securities attorney, Amy Wan, a few months ago about what types of companies are prime candidates for Reg A+. And I had read an article a few months back about the LaFerrari, this supercar. And the whole point of the article was that you don't choose that car, Ferrari chooses you. You don't just have money and decide one day you want to buy a multi-million-dollar sports car. You have to be in the club. You have to be attending events, be a branding guy, buy all the merch. So my opinion is that Reg A Plus chooses you. It is biased, it is prejudiced, and it discriminates, for better or worse. That means that some companies will have an inherent advantage going into these campaigns and can take advantage of certain things like having paying customers, a built-in audience, and others who are not a perfect fit are going to have to work harder to mitigate the fact that they do not have a car or a jet or a consumer product that is easy for most people to understand. So the absolute bullseye perfect fit companies roughly have this profile. You have an existing customer base. This is a paying customer base. This isn't I have an app with 1 million free downloads and I never email these people. Elio had pre-orders. People were putting down $500 to $1,000 on the vehicle. You already have a social media community. You have an email list with a good open rate, click-through rate, consumer product focus. Your business is easy to understand. Maybe you've come out of a successful Kickstarter campaign. Virtuix closed the Reg A round on Seed Invest. They raised $8 million. They had done a $3 million round, I think, on Kickstarter 2 years prior. So if that's not your company, no problem. You just have to work harder to succeed. Maybe you need a hybrid approach. Maybe you're not a great fit for the crowd. Maybe you need a broker dealer or investment bank that's going to pick up the phone and make a couple calls to strategic investors. We also did another deeper analysis looking at companies in the last year that had run campaigns. What we have found is that there are another set of attributes for companies that have had success. That is, you've already raised $3 million. So those 60% of companies that have filed their pre-revenue, that's a lack of education in the market, that they're not a good fit for Reg A+. This is not a good fit for pre-revenue, most pre-product companies. This is a better fit for operating businesses. Maybe start with Reg CF on Start Engine, then do a Reg A+. So 3 elements to a successful campaign.
Wait, before we roll to that, let me just mention, from my perspective, there's basically, in order to make Reg CF or Reg A Plus work and to know that you're the right company to do it, there's 3 basic categories. One is a company like Elio that has a built-in following or audience already in place, right? That one's a no-brainer. The other 2, there was a company that we worked together also with Crowdfund Next Time called XTI Aircraft. And this was a vertical takeoff and landing. Doug referred to it a little bit a few minutes ago, but it was an aircraft company. The guy pitched it to the military, couldn't get it bought, so he decided he wanted to take the technology into the civilian market with a vertical takeoff and landing private airplane. So this is a pretty cool deal, right? Where you can land this airplane in your driveway, lift it up, and take it out and go 400 knots to wherever you're going. Very, very interesting and visually stunning. Visually stunning. So this was a company that no one had heard about. These were older gentlemen, typically, late 50s, early 60s, no personal social media following, no company following, no presence, no website, nothing, 0. And Darren, in about 90 days, took them from 0 to almost 21 million in non-binding indications of interest under Reg A Plus Test the Waters campaign. And the reason that happened was because this technology and innovation was so stunning that he was able to get it on the homepage of CNN. It was covered in London, I think in The Guardian on the front page. I mean, it got over 100 major media hits, again, coordinated through some of the PR team at Crowdfund X that did it. So if you got something that is an absolutely game-changing technology that's got some visual, stunning aspect to it, then I think you got some potential there. The third way that you could do it, and this one was really impressive. This was a B2B digital dental lab. And I got to tell you, when I first heard about it, I wasn't convinced it was going to be that successful, and ultimately they failed. They failed because I believe that they didn't have the right guidance, counsel, and I think it was an off-platform deal. They try to do it themselves. So it's like a do-it-yourself thing. I get a lot of people say, well, can I do it myself? I say, well, sure, I can tune up my car by myself, go down to the library, get the manual, get the book. Can I do it? Absolutely. Chances of it running well? Not so good, right? So because, again, the car mechanic that does that every day, day in, day out, sort of knows what doesn't work and avoids those failures that I'm going to try to do. So these guys, they raised I think it was just under $3.6 million on a digital dental laboratory. Like what they do. Fascinating. What they did was they went to this was an existing company, to Darren's point, and secondly, they went to the dentist, the hygienist, and the dental assistants, the people that are ordering the lab services, and they got them to invest. Think about that for a second. So how's the next salesperson that comes rolling into that dentist's office with their box of donuts or whatever it is they try to sell on the shoe shine with, right? And they walk into that dentist's office and say, hey, get out of here, because we own our own dental lab, because I'm personally invested. Almost 3.6 million that they raised doing that on a B2B. So there are exceptions if they're done well. And this was a company, again, that had been in business, had some pretty significant technology. It was a digital dental lab, so it's kind of a game changer in the dental laboratory world. But the reality is they went to their B2B customer base and got 3.6 million. Pretty powerful. And I think that can be reproduced with the right company and the right message that goes to why it is you want your customers to become your partners.
By the way,
also leaving out an important point about XTI, and that's that he teed it up from 0 to anything, and once it was on Start Engine, it went from 0 to 1,100 investors.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was.
one of the challenges I think we've seen in these deals is that the issuer and their counsel are setting the minimums too high because they don't know any better. And the truth is that this industry is so new and young, there's no good reason, from my mind, I'm the marketing guy, not the attorney, to set a $5 million, $10 million minimum. If it were my Reg A deal, I would set a 0 minimum. Now, maybe that's controversial, but I think until we have 100 data points and a lot of averages and high degrees of confidence in success, XTI, the dental company, they would have raised capital had the minimum been set lower. So we'll talk a little bit about storytelling here, and this is the most overlooked aspect from our perspective in the industry, yet it's the most critical for success. So you can market the hell out of your deal, but if your story doesn't resonate with your audience, who may be customers, could be people you acquire by email, etc., the marketing is in vain, it's futile. So the key to the message is not to pitch your product, not to sell the what, but to sell the why. So there's a famous Simon Sinek TED Talk. You can Google it on YouTube. It's worth 15 minutes. And the essence of his message is that people don't care about what you do, they care about why you do it. So the trick is to sell the why, not the what. The what for Paul Elio is the car, it's the vehicle, it's the mileage, it's the cost. But the why is much more compelling. Altering the course of transportation, reducing American dependence on foreign oil, bringing jobs back home. So we recommend to our issuers that you sell your vision, your mission, and your values. Seems easy. Most people are tempted to go the other direction. They want to talk about their business, their traction, their revenues. You need to tell that story too on the campaign page. So crowdfunding is really, it's a modern infomercial. The story is told top to bottom, and it's a visual story. And your video is your primary sales tool. So, I have this saying, it's a little silly, but I believe it. The modern prospectus in this industry is a 2-minute video. It's a 2-minute video. It's supported with a 1A filing that might be 500 pages and hundreds of risks and a lot of detail. And there's tremendous value, to Kim's point, in research for certain investor segments. But if you can't tell your story in a compelling fashion in a 2-minute video, good luck. Good luck inspiring the crowd. So I don't know if this is actually going to play sound, but I'm going to show you the video we produced for Elio. We brought in a cinematographer who has produced $100 million box office films, and the essence is really less about the product and more about the why. So we'll see if we get sound on here.
I constantly think about the future.
So it's a little soft, but
Where are we headed? What's it going to look like?
I don't think we have sound on here.
This was the time to do something. Right now.
Oh, lights.
I believe in the American dream. But not the American dream of 20 or 50 or 100 years ago. The American dream of now.
Sorry, guys.
To be innovative. To be responsible. To own the future. When you see an opportunity, that means you're the perfect person to take it. So, I did something. The Elio has an aerodynamic.
Sorry, getting all technical difficulties.
The way we get 84 miles per gallon is we see documents front to back instead of side by side. Half as wide, half as much air.
Yeah, I don't think we have it on here.
You know what?
It's the most affordable vehicle.
Well, so if you heard it, and you can see it, it's less about the product, it's more about the why. And we recommend this approach, generally speaking, for Reg CF, Reg A+. You need to make an emotional connection with the investor. My opinion, and I believe Ron shares this opinion, at least from the crowd perspective, the unaccredited person, the average unaccredited person, early data shows, is more interested in investing in the why than they are about making money in your deal. The financial return seems to be a secondary motivation. Making money by investing in your company may be a secondary motivation. So people are investing in companies they believe in. They invest in entrepreneurs who are leading those companies they believe in. Very overlooked, but really critical aspect.
And just to validate that point, when we saw, for example, the market swing in the after Brexit, the vote, literally these EO shares did not move a nickel in terms of the market pricing. And then Scott shared with me, because it went through Fund America, Scott shared with me that I think over 50% of the people that bought shares in Elio have never gone to the transfer agent and requested that they be transferred to their individual brokerage accounts. So they've just left the shares there. Why? Because, as Darren was pointing out, they're in for the long haul. They want to be sitting in that passenger seat with Paul Elio as he builds this company to success. Is there a question in the back?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Dan Cannon, Benjamin and Gerald. I've been in this business 30 years, and the landscape has changed dramatically. And this is all great for entrepreneurs to raise capital, but those of us in the broker-dealer business, and when you have stock like Elio, the big success that comes out to 75 and now is 12, trading 5,000 shares a day, that's a nightmare. Entrepreneurs can move on. For us, we have to live with that forever. So something that this group here has to figure out is aftermarket support. Because I disagree that people are going to invest in the story. They don't care if it's peacockfeathers.com. They want to make money, and they need liquidity.
Right.
And that's something that's really, this is fantastic. But we have to start thinking about the aftermarket if we're going to list.
Yeah,
and
no, there's
liquidity for investors.
I mean, I do agree completely with the importance of aftermarket support, and it's really, an honor that the OTC folks are here, because that's a part of it, right? Is providing the exchange by which then those secondary support players can actually do what they need to do. Without the OTC, we'd all be stuck, right? Because actually, when they set up these rules, they didn't, think about how that secondary support would work. But as far as Elio goes, remember the shares were sold at 12. They've been trading at typically around 20, pretty much. Almost, they did spike up to 75 for a day or two. It dropped back to about $20, which is where it's been, which is a phenomenal return, assuming those stock prices hold up. And it was only 2 days ago that it dropped from 20 to 12.50 actually. So if you think about it, people have still probably outperformed the market. But I think that that's like an outlier, and your point is well taken. That secondary support is critical, and that it has to be the substance in these companies, which is why we heard some comments about why this is really not built for a very early stage couple guys in a garage with an idea. That's not something that our broker-dealer community can support. So it's going to have to be a company of substance. I think what Darren was talking about, and then in addition, what you're pointing out is absolutely right.
But I absolutely think we can get there and legitimize this concept as a real viable. I mean, the lady over here said how large the marketplace is. It's dramatic how much growth and how much, Goldman Sachs won't touch anything under $1 billion, period. Any of the big banks won't.
Right.
But boutique broker dealers, she mentioned there were 3,000. There were 5,000 not long ago. Well, without getting into politics, maybe there'll be a lot less regulation on us folks who can help the $50 million crowd. But it is very critical that entrepreneurs in this room and others and lawyers understand that aftermarket and liquidity is beyond important. It's as equally as important as producing the story.
I agree with that, by the way. My emphasis in highlighting the importance of the story is to help a prospective issuer thinking about Reg CF, Reg A+, realize how they're going to be successful. For the industry as a whole, at the macro level, to be successful, we have to get winning deals that are going to return money to investors, period. If every deal is a bust or goes to zero, it's not going to work. And there was discussion about hybrid deals. I am a believer in the opportunity there. Elio Motors had 5,500 people who indicated interest but did not invest. That means 5,500 people could have invested but did not. Had there been a broker dealer in that campaign to convert those people, they would have raised more. At the same time, Paul would have given up his self-assigned valuation of $300 million. So there's pros and cons to each, but I don't disagree with you. I just think, generally speaking, people are missing the story in these campaigns.
Yeah, but the liquidity events, of course, institutions, some of them can hang in there and look for internal rate of returns. But what's the point of listing? You don't have to list if you're just looking for an exit 5 or 10 years down the road.
And most won't.
So, yeah.
Most won't list, I
Yeah,
think.
and so, my point is that if we can establish an active, vibrant secondary market, that will make this something as viable as the NASDAQ.
I'm sure that's music to the OTC folks' ears.
Yeah.
Is there a way to create a secondary market for a lot of these convertible notes that people are buying, that you all can support?
Again, I'm despite my introductory comments about my wannabe securities lawyer, there's a number of issues there, but there are currently some platforms, I think, that are trading alternative securities. So I think they're out there now, and I think that I think they'll further develop.
All right, so we'll play this again. We had a little snafu the first time. Now with sound. And if we can, how we kill these lights. Can't. All right, fair enough. That's fine.
What's it going to look like? This was the time to do something. Right now. I believe in the American dream. But not the American dream of 20 or 50 or 100 years ago. The American dream of now. To be innovative. To be responsible. To own the future. When you see an opportunity, that means you're the perfect person to take it. So, I did something. The Helio has an aerodynamic design. The way we get 84 miles per gallon is we see occupants front to back instead of side by side. We're half as wide, we move half as much air, and we get double the mileage. It's the most affordable vehicle ever created. I found a way we can do things better. It's time to be smarter with what we already have. We are unique. Everything we're doing is common sense, simple stuff, strung together for an amazing impact. Together we can alter the course of the future, the course of transportation. Let's do something.
All right, so that was better. So we've just got a few more minutes here, really just a couple more slides, so we're almost done. Producing the story, visual story top to bottom. If you have the right story, you produce it at a high quality, high production value, now you have to distribute the story. And our vision of that distribution is digital, paid, earned, owned, social media marketing, paid media, Facebook ads against a lookalike audience, earned media. We'll hit 1,000 bloggers, journalists, you get picked up 20 or 30 times in the press. Owned media, you have 5,000 paying customers, you've got an email list for them, plus 20,000 newsletter subscribers. And social media, you may own accounts for Facebook, Twitter, etc. What we found in the last year is that above all else, and actually I want to see if anybody has a guess, of all these digital marketing activities, 100 things you could spend money do online, anybody know what the number one driver of awareness and investment is in these deals? Anybody, guess. Word of mouth, Facebook, using the product, Twitter,
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, PR.
Email.
Who said email?
I get it.
Despite the dozens of spam messages you get every week and the constant unsubscribing that we're all doing, email marketing has proven to be the number one strategy and tactic so far in driving both awareness and subscription in these campaigns. There's 100 things you can do online. If you're going to focus on one, pick email marketing. That's why we spend our time and budget for companies that don't have the audience to build that audience in advance and nurture that audience through a comprehensive multi-month email marketing campaign. And we use a number of proprietary tools and systems to nurture that audience. So if you don't open the first time, you're going to get the email the next day. And profile that audience. You know, maybe Scott is a guy who he's going to invest if he gets an email every day for 2 weeks. But Ron, he needs a lighter message. He's a guy, he needs it once every 2 weeks, and he needs to be asked politely. So there's all types of behavioral characteristics we're learning and picking up on. But email marketing so far has been the #1 strategy. Not to say there's no value in television advertising. We've seen issuers get on Kramer. Yes?
Just so you know, with email marketing, you know, there are certain know your customer rules, and FINRA is more freaky about email than we are about our current email scandals that are going on. I mean, absolutely off the charts freaky about it. So check with your lawyers about email marketing and knowing your customer. That can cause a lot of problems if you don't thoroughly investigate that.
Ask Hillary.
Yeah, well, she's had an easier time than broker dealers that misuse email.
Yes.
You know, I'm of the opinion, just watching, I was on the south side and I'm a principal in companies that are listed on the OTC, that market makers are borderline predatory in terms of trying to take a short position in the stock, you know, trade amongst each other and mark it down. And I guess I want to, if it's okay, open the room up a little bit to talk about what people in this community can do to insulate great young ideas from market makers who are trying to, you know, make 10 to 15% on the spread rather than maintain a truly orderly market. Because the capital that's behind those firms, whether it's Knight or a host of others, Canaccord, you know, et cetera, is so far greater than liquidity in any of these stocks that it's destroying issuers' cost of capital, blowing up their equity, making it impossible for them to do things that you all have facilitated, frankly.
I would disagree with you all facilitate, right? Because let's think about what we're talking about here.
In terms of finding money.
Okay, well, we're Reg A Plus, right? So the only one that's ever been exchange traded that's required that kind of support is Elio. That's it. This is the outlier. So rather than take our time, and I think it's a relevant topic, and I think at some point down the road it'll get there, but Reg A Plus shares today are not likely to be ever exchange traded in most cases. They will be held till exit, is my belief, #1. And #2, we're only 15 months into this process, right? Started June of 2015, maybe it's 17 months now. But we're about 17 months in.
Is there a solution for public companies or not?
Technically, you are a public company, but it is a very different kind of public company than we've ever seen in history.
Right, well, people change their minds for whatever reason, they sell home.
I'm just saying today, for the purpose of our discussion, let's look at what we have to do to get the industry started and get capital raised for the companies that are seeking to use these new rules to raise the capital. And then we're going to have that next challenge, which I think is very appropriate, that both of you guys pointed out actually about, you know, secondary market support and doing so appropriately so that it doesn't, you know, gouge the entrepreneurs trying to raise capital and essentially defeat the
Or
whole.
gouge the person that took yearly risk.
Yeah.
And is right.
So I do think, I'm saying there's an issue here for sure.
No, the OTC markets is sponsoring this, and it's for public companies, so I just.
But there's one, you know, and the reality is they're talking about what they're hoping to do is the same thing we're all hoping to do, most of us in the industry, which is you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at, we got bigger problems that are closer to us, even though there are more problems that are going to come down the road, as you're, I think, aptly pointing out.
That's a good dialogue.
Worth follow-up discussion. So we can breeze through influencer marketing. There's just a number of strategies, PR, social, but 3 takeaways that we've learned in the last year and a half marketing these campaigns. The issuer does need a story. Stories sell. When you're an entrepreneur and you're pitching a VC for $10 million, there's subtle emotional cues. It's not just about the numbers. So I want to overemphasize the importance of storytelling, because companies that have told great stories are raising capital, and those that are failing to tell compelling stories are failing to raise capital. Doesn't mean that you should raise money if you don't have substance. Doesn't mean that investors don't need big wins. They do, but storytelling is critical. we would recommend you partner with a financial marketing firm. Ours, Kim's, anybody's. If you have a CMO, a dedicated marketing team, go for it, do it in-house. But realize this is a tremendous undertaking. We typically assign 8 people over 4 to 5 months to manage these campaigns. This is not a one-person marching band. We have an account manager. What's that?
Manage one campaign of a company.
One campaign. And by the way, I'm going to throw out a number just to give you a sense. What do we recommend you spend for marketing? I recommend 5%. So for the guy in here that wants to raise $50 million, I'm going to ask you, where's your $2.5 million marketing budget? Because that's unrealistic to think you're going to raise millions of dollars on a shoestring budget. Yes?
I want to plug something and you might add to it. As a broker-dealer guy, we're not going to say anything in the story. We're not going to use any of the marketing material if it's not in the SEC qualified offering circular or in the issuer-approved PPM. So for the issuers out there, engage the marketing team, come up with what you want to say, and make sure and put it in the docs, because otherwise we won't let you say it.
Correct. All the marketing materials that we generate or a partner generates, we have thoroughly reviewed. The issuer needs to have thoroughly reviewed. They need to match up. They need to be identical with what you file in the 1A. Highly regulated industry. My number one concern in the Elio deal was that my firm was going to say something that was going to get Elio disqualified. Right? That was my number one fear. So very important.
Did they go after the email communication as well?
That was how they raised $17 million. It was an email marketing campaign.
But did the regulators look at it before they approved all?
Yes, all the content pre-approved. Oh yeah. Yes.
Other than Elio Motors, what companies, and other than maybe real estate deals, what companies have successfully raised money in reggae clubs?
Virtuix, which is a VR treadmill, virtual reality treadmill, they did $8 million. Brewdog, which has not publicly announced their numbers, who we're working with, very successful campaign. And I think in the next few years, you're going to see non-consumer products companies, biotech, life sciences, find success here. Last point, Focus founder Ron and I are big believers in this. We see companies try to go at this and defer it, outsource it, delegate it to somebody else on the team. If you, the CEO, are not totally 100% committed to this, this is not the path for you. It's not the path. It's easy to get distracted. I know you people have businesses to run, but this requires tremendous focus. Ron will tell you Paul Elio was laser focused for 7 months on this thing. He was calling Ron every day, talking about the deal. That was really it. I want to make one other comment because it came up about hybrid deal marketing. And this is, in my opinion, potentially the future of securities marketing in this industry. And I'm a believer in this. I wrote an article in Bankless Times predicting that the first $50 million Reg A deal is going to be hybrid. What does that mean? It means there's going to be a crowd component, direct to investor. There's going to be money raised from retail brokerage and institutional. And I'm in a couple of these deals that are theories at the moment, but I think will prove to be a viable approach for some issuers. So the issuer that takes this path is likely an operating company that has real revenues, has a real operating business, and those companies are not going to want to use a self-assigned valuation. They're going to potentially benefit by having a placement agent assign a fair valuation so that that deal is attractive to institutional buyers. Elio Motors did not take that path. They used a self-assigned valuation. It worked. You could also say that that's a simple supply and demand equation. If the issuer sets $1 billion valuation and sells it, the demand was there. There's obviously risks there, but I do think that some issuers may benefit by taking a strategic approach to raise $5, $10, $20 million or more. It's going to be very hard, generally speaking, to do it online, pure crowd campaign. I think that issuer is going to need to take a multi-channel approach and bring in different experts to target different investor segments.
Actually, Darren, Elio proves your point that you're making. It was a $25 million offering with a $5 million allocation for a subscription. It could have been a $30 million offering. They wanted to raise it all themselves using Start Engine, which is great. He begged them to throw in comp for selling dealers. If they did that, they were convinced they were going to sell the entire $30 million themselves. They stalled at $17 million, which isn't a stall. And so they had to close because they did not include their S1. Sorry, 1A, the ability for a broker-dealer to help sell it. Broker-dealers really wanted to help sell that deal. So we wound up closing, going out OTC, which is a fantastic success story, but they left $13 million sitting on the table. They raised $17 million themselves through Start Engine. If they had also allowed some broker dealers to help solve, they could have gotten another $13 million.
Agreed. Now the flip side of that, by the way, because I have some friends in the room who are purists and are giving me good advice. There is something to be said about bypassing everybody and going straight to the crowd. You may not need an investment bank or broker dealer. There's something very powerful about what Elio did without a bank, without someone else assigning a valuation. There's something very powerful about that. I do think, though, some businesses will benefit by taking a hybrid approach. I think that's potentially the path to 50.
And then, just to wrap up, and I know we're getting right to that point, but I'll share with you where I start my dialogue with a typical entrepreneur that's considering a Reg A Plus raise. I tell them there's a couple advantages, a couple disadvantages, and I try to do that because that's kind of like the way I process information. I want to hear the high level first and then give you the detail. All right, so from the high level, I think the reason why entrepreneurs should consider doing this, number one, is you control the terms, right? We talked a little bit about, when you don't have a broker dealer involved, there's great latitude to set the valuation of the company, right? And if you're comparing it against traditional venture capital, super angel, or high net worth family office financing, usually you guys know how this works. The person with the money makes the rules, so you're gonna find all those control hooks that usually entrepreneurs are very unhappy about once the rubber meets the road down the line. Everybody's happy when the money first comes in, but later on it causes problems. So the ability to set terms is a key advantage to Reg A Plus. The other advantage is that once you do this and you do it successfully, you will end up with a small army of brand ambassadors. These are people who are typically very committed to the brand and the mission. So if you take Elio, for example, he's got 6,300 people that when he goes into production, he gets that out on social media. The average person now has something like 1,000 contacts in their phone. So he's got a potential reach of something like 6.3 million people at a cost of zero. As traditional media becomes more expensive and less effective, social becomes king. Well, the question is, how does the entrepreneur control social? And there's nothing like having an army of brand ambassadors who are completely committed to the financial and to the general success of the company as well. So that's the second one, is the army of brand ambassadors. Those are the two advantages. Disadvantages are disclosure. Now here, as we're sitting in OTC, I was like, well, what do you mean disclosure? Well, you become a public company, and now you are going to have to disclose, first of all, in the 1A itself, and of course in the twice per year updates that you're required to file, your financial progress, a management discussion analysis, and things like that. That, a lot of entrepreneurs are just going to struggle. They don't want their suppliers, their customers, their employees to see. And if that's the case, great, this just isn't your path. So I tell them that that's a major downside, and let's deal with that now because the details of how Reg A Plus works doesn't matter if you can't get over that issue. This is going to require disclosure. And then finally, on the negative side, and I think Darren is driving this home, is that this is a lot of work. Now, it's true that raising capital, no matter how you do it, is a lot of work. But this is double work, is how I describe it. Double work because, number one, you're raising capital, and number two, you're promoting your brand. Trust me that Elio was nowhere near the company before Reg A and after Reg A. The reason why was the amount of media coverage was immense, number one. And number two is that in addition to the 17 million, they also sold an additional 8 million in pre-purchase deposits that they took on those vehicles. So Paul Elio walked away from the table with about 25 million. So yeah, it's a lot of work. But you know what? And finally, there's another thing about Reg A Plus. We were talking about the good fits. What made Elio a good fit is lack of viable financing alternatives. Paul Elio was about at the end of the road, meaning that no institutional was going to finance him because, look, there's nobody that advertises or that invests routinely in the automotive sector, right? Just isn't out there. So for companies that don't have a home, that don't have a place, right? Tech, if you're in tech, that's why you're not seeing a lot of tech deals, true tech deals, using Reg A Plus, because there's alternatives there, right? And if somebody's standing at your door with a check for $3 million on a tech deal, you're probably going to take it, even if it comes with those control hooks that chances are you're going to end up out of your job. I think it's something like 50 or 60% of founders end up out of their job in 18 months after pulling the VC money in. But they'll still take it because today it's $3 million. It's easier to do. But if you don't have that alternative, Reg A Plus is great, and that's one of the things that's made for it.
Thanks, Robert. Why don't we take a break here? We're going to have a 20-minute break, have some coffee, relax. When we come back, we've got 2 sessions. two important sections. One is on Form A with accounting and legal, and then